Welcome back. We are here. I shouldn't say we. It's weird. I'm talking about me. But when I talk about everybody who's watching, I say we. So, yeah. Here I am. Notice I have found a really awesome location to do my recording here. It's pretty exciting. I just decided to whisk off and try this from a different location, so that's pretty cool. But there are other matters we need to attend to, and that is multiplying fractions. Of course, we gotta hit the important stuff, right? I mean, being in this beautiful beach is great, but we have to learn how to multiply fractions, don't we? That is key. And so here's how it's gonna work. I have a couple of problems here for us to try. Something simple. And what I have here is just 6/7 times 4/5. Pretty simple problem. What we want to do is, in multiplying fractions, you'll see the topic up here says multiplying fractions and cross-canceling for easier simplifying. We're going to get to cross-canceling here in just a little bit, but before we do, I want to make sure that we know how to multiply fractions. Super easy. I'm going to use these arrows here to tell you what to do. Basically, you just multiply across. Just like that. Yeah, it is that easy. Okay, you might be like thinking, what the heck? It couldn't be that easy. This is some kind of a trick. It's a trap. It's not a trap. Where's my pen? I lose this pen. I'm constantly losing this pen. Got my pen. Trusty pen. Now, what we have here is basically just multiply this across. You multiply the 6 times the 4, and you get 24. And then you take 7 times 5, and you get 35. And that's how you multiply fractions. Pretty simple, isn't it? Now, they're not always that easy. They're just not. There's sometimes they get a little bit trickier. I'll show you one right here. I shouldn't say this is tricky, because it's not tricky. This is where we're going to get into something called cross-canceling, though. Or just canceling. But first, before we do, let's use our arrows here. And remember, we want to be able to simplify all of our answers. So it's key that we simplify. Now, if I multiply across, I'd get 6, and 9, 3 times 2 is 6, and 4 times 9 is 36. And when I simplify that, I should be able to divide both of those numbers by the same factor, the biggest factor possible. Okay? Finding factors isn't that difficult either. If I want to find the factors of 6, I'm going to go 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. Factors are all the numbers you can multiply together to make that. 36 has quite a few. In fact, maybe I better scoot that up a little bit. What do I get out of 36? 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9, and 6 times 6. Look at them all. What's the biggest one they have in common? They both have a 6 in common. It's the biggest one. So if I divide both of these by 6, and that's what I'll do right now. So divided by 6 and divided by 6. And if I divide those both by 6 and 36 divided by 6, 6. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. I want to show you another way. This is called cross-canceling. So see these arrows? Like these arrows right here are pointing to the 3 and 9. And these arrows are pointing to the 4 and 2. I can cross-cancel those, basically meaning I can cross out those numbers and replace them with like a simplified fraction. So for instance, I'm going to look at 3 and the 9, since these arrows are pointing at the opposites, this top left and the bottom right. Pointing at those opposites, I say opposite because the opposite of the top left is the bottom right. And if I can find a number that we can divide both of those by, we want to divide those both by the greatest common factor. What's the biggest number I can divide both 3 and 9 by? 3 doesn't have very many numbers I can divide it by. Obviously, every number has a 1. But we don't want to divide by 1. We want to divide by something else. if you look at the 3 and the 9, you can divide them both by 3. So that makes a 1 and a 3. And then I can look at the 4 and the 2. The 4 and the 2 can both divide by something, can't they? They both divide by 2. That makes a 1 here and a 2 here. And see, now I can just multiply across, and here's what that looks like. Multiply this times this, and this times that. And what do we end up with? We'd end up with 1/6 again. 1 times 1 is 1, and 2 times 3 is 6. That's called cross-canceling. It's a really handy method of multiplying. Here's another one. 8/15 times 5/12. Now, let's look at cross-canceling if we can. Let's cross-cancel all the ones that we can do. For instance, let's start with the 5 and the 15. I think it's fairly obvious that we can cross-cancel with those, right? So let's do it. 5 and 15 both divide by what? Yeah, 5 exactly. And we end up with 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 15 divided by 5 is 3. And then we can divide the 8 and the 12 both by, what's the biggest number? I can divide them both by 2 because they're even, but is there a bigger one? It's 4. Yes, if you said 4, correct. And 8 divided by 4, right here I'm on the 8. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And then we go to the 12, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. And then all I have to do is multiply across. Then I take 2 times 1 and 3 times 3. And we're pretty much there. 2 times 1 is 2, and 3 times 3 is 9, so we get 2/9 there. Back here we had 1/6. That's pretty much all there is to it when it comes to multiplying fractions. Okay, I got one more type of problem I want to show you, and that's if you have mixed numbers like this, 4 and 4/5 and 1 and 1/9. So if you multiply those together, what we want to do is, and the key here is to make sure that you turn everything into fraction, either into an improper fraction when you have mixed numbers. Okay, so you want to do this. You want to turn these into. You can't multiply until you do this. You can't multiply until you change these. So if I take 5 times 4 is 20 plus 4 is 24. If I do 24/5, okay. And then over here, on this side, I'm going to turn 1 and 1/9 into 10/9. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 1 is 10. I do 10/9. And then we can do cross-canceling here, which is really exciting because it makes this problem much easier. And I'm going to divide 5 and 10. I'm going to divide those both by 5. And that makes a 1 and a 2. And then if you look at the 9 and the 24, they both have a number they can be divided by also. The 9 and the 24 can both be divided by 3. And that becomes a 3, and that becomes an 8. Whoops, let's try to keep consistency here. Change back to yellow. This is a 3, and 8. Okay, and then all we got to do is multiply across like we were doing before. 8 times 2 and 1 times 3. And we're going to get an improper fraction as an answer here. So we get 16/3. But we want to turn that back into a mixed number. So we're going to take 16 divided by 3. 3 goes into 16 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. I get 1 left. So it would be 5, and that 1 right there goes up here, and the 3 goes down there. So my answer is 5 1/3. That's what happens if you use mixed numbers. So as usual, I need to get to the water here and get wet. So if you guys have any questions, you know where to find me. Toodaloo.